Okay, I thought I would do a quick update on my main game. This is JyraWing. So the new feature I've worked on is now the game will save high scores. So if you get a high score that is higher than the lowest high score, it will save that into a table of 10 and put it in the right place. So I'll just show that. I'll just get a high score and die really fast. I need about like 100 points for that to happen. This level's a little slow. Grab that. Grab that. Just get a few more. That should be good. That. And die, basically. Oh, there's one other thing I'll show you that changed. Not something I thought about originally, but then after some playtesting, I realized that needs to happen. But in this screen right here, this used to not actually stop like the game. The game would just keep going. Like your ship would be gone, but the countdown would keep going and the screen would keep scrolling. So it doesn't do that anymore. And so now you get a name entry, and you can enter your name. Just call it test. Where's T E E, and then um, and so that'll save your high score. And then for some reason it pauses in the player. I don't know why it does that. But yeah, then you can see test right here. So, and these are previous high scores I saved. It initializes to a list of 10 that I think are like 1,000 through 100, going off by 100 each time. And then it comes back here. You get prompted with that. Either you have a high score and you die, or you get a high score and you finish the game. So you can look at the code for it a bit. There's basically two classes worth talking about in relation to this. Those are high score data, which is the big one, and then score controller.cs, which is actually there's an instance of score controller for each time the game is run, whereas high score data is a singleton that persists through the whole game. And then the data itself is actually stored in a JSON. It's stored exactly the same way I have all of my game settings. So I'll show you load game and save game. Basically, what you need to do all this is pretty simple with JSON utility. If you make the thing you're trying to save, which for my case is an array of a struct, which is also serializable, if you mark them both system serializable and you give them basically the primitive types as any of their fields. So this is an array of a struct that contains just an integer and a string, so it's not that complicated. As long as JSON utility can serialize that into a string, and you use a stream writer to write that to a JSON file, it should be pretty easy, like I do here in save game. It's pretty easy in a load game to then load that file and then use JSON utility from JSON to take that file or take the data in that file and create your instance of the singleton. So actually, in the instance function for the singleton, usually you just have like okay, if the instance doesn't exist, create a new one. In my case, if the instance doesn't exist, we create a new one, but then we also try to load the game. So if there's nothing to load, it will generate a new one. But if is something to, which actually it creates the new one here. If the file doesn't exist, it initializes the defaults and saves the defaults, and then it goes through the rest of its thing. But here, it will load game. It doesn't just make a new class. Then when you, like I said, when you die or you finish the game, it calls check score. Check score will check against your now initialized list of scores. It checks if it is greater than your candidate score, basically, is greater than the lowest one. And if it is, it will say, hey, you've got one to enter, which that's basically for the level transition. So when you die or you finish the game, instead of going back to the title screen, it goes to that score entry screen. This sets a flag in, so this sets, what is it? Set high score to enter. So fine, let's just go with the definition. This sets this, which will set a flag and like an integer amount to say, hey, this is how much you've got. And so when the screen transition or the level transition happens, it will call this first. It will call the static method on score controller, and if it's true, then it goes to the score entry, the high score, the name entry screen. If you didn't have to enter names, this would be a lot easier. But then, so you've got higher than the highest one, but then we do a binary search to find out actually which one you are, like what place you're in. Are you in 5th place? Are you in 3rd place? Are you in first place? Where are you? The binary search function is pretty standard. There's some assertions here, but that's not. I'll take those out probably for like a released version of the game, but for right now it's fine for testing. This is a binary search method. There's nothing. This is all integers. I'm not dealing with the struct for the high scores. It's just integers. And then that returns not the score itself or a score itself. It returns a place in the list. So you get that, and that returns from here. So in enter score, which is actually what gets called initially, you now have this replacement score. You have the place like for the replacement score, and so I have some assertions here basically to say, tell me what place it's in and like where it is. This trick, this if else, is a preprocessor directive, which I'm using to do assertions, but also give me some debug log messages, which is why I think that high score entry screen was pausing in the player. But you got this, and then basically once you've entered it, which you enter it, well, before you enter it, then you have to, everything that is lower, you need to shift down one, and the thing on the bottom needs to get shifted off, of course, unless it's the last thing, which is what I'm doing in this while loop. And then you replace the score, and then you say, set high score to enter is now false because you don't want to, if you play the game again, to have this high score screen come up. You want to reset that, say, hey, everything was entered. And that's about it. That's all you really need to do to get all that stuff working. Again, the big thing is just this JSON parsing, which again, it's the configuration for the game, like the controls, is saved in the exact same way in a JSON file, and then you've got this binary searching some logic to put your score in the right place. Like I said, if there were no names, or there was only one high score to save, or something like that, or you were willing to do something really hacky, like say instead of doing this binary search or something like that, you could, if you know how many places there are in the list, which I know there are 10, you could kind of search it manually. Like you could kind of do an order n, just like search through linearly through the list if binary searches are not something you're comfortable with, but it's something I've done a lot of, so it's not that big a deal. Anyways, other than that, it's basically been a lot of rebalancing the game. I have 5 levels in the game, which you can pick from here. Like these are the 5. Just today I finished the balancing I want to do on 3, so I've got 4 and 5 left to do. 4 and 5 also have some rough looking art, which I might change up, like they're a little plain looking. And then the last thing, well, there's a couple other things. First, this UI is this red with the lives 3 and the score. Like this kind of looks ugly. I want to change that out. It looks kind of drab. And then the other thing is when the player finishes the game, I want them to have some sort of like, thank you for playing, you finished your mission, like some basic stuff, instead of just, throwing you back at the title screen. Like it's just a small thing. There's not a lot of plot in this game or anything like that. It's just quick confirmation that like, hey, you finished the game, good for you. But that's about it. Like the rest of that stuff, the balancing, the UI, oh, I got a high score. Let's see what place it was. I don't know why it does that. It's 8. Oh, that's right. I set all my score before I made this video. I set all my scores really low, so I would always get 1. Yeah, there doesn't really seem to be, other than that, much left to do once those things are done. Depending on how the Steam Direct business goes, we'll decide where these things get released. If it's not on Steam, if I don't do that, then it'll be an itch.io thing, which at this point I'm kind of fine with either. It's whatever, but yeah, that's just a quick check-in with this game. Thanks.